Hello and welcome to today's episode of SportsCasters, episode 5 of SportsCasters Media. And on behalf of the SportsCasters Media team, we would like to personally thank you for tuning into today's episode. Enjoy.
Tell us live. Yeah, I am the king of the E. Hey, get it through like the DJ. Yeah, I am the
Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 5 of the SportsCasters podcast. My name is Emma Houghton, and I am your host. Once again, SportsCasters is brought to you today by our two sponsors, Rel's Revenge and Slim Dev Music. And today we have 3 special guests. Super excited to have these guys on. Isaac Mays, Zay Pigis, and Noah Chast. How are you guys doing today? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I'm doing great.
Awesome. And, of course, as always, we are joined by our founder, SportsCasters founder, Chris Lyles Jr., and our 2 analysts, Sterling Harris and Matthew Anderson. So we have a really full plate today. Let's get right into it, guys. As always, we're going to let our special guests go first. And we're going to start with baseball. I believe this time last week when we were recording week 4, it was day 1 of the NBA restart. And now we have the baseball restart. So we're right in the thick of all the sports coming back. Having 4 different games on at one time is definitely overwhelming in a good way. But let's start with baseball. We have definitely some big baseball fans here today. So Noah, I'll start with you. We're about 20% through this super abnormal 60-game season. Tell me who you have as some favorites for the World Series in this 60-game season.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me, first of all. I love Sportcasters. I love the brand, the podcast. I've been watching them. It's great. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. But yeah, baseball is back. We're getting through the short season right now, and there's a lot of teams that we expect to be good are off to a hot start, but some teams are surprising us. So the 2 that everyone expected, and is still my World Series prediction, are the Yankees and the Dodgers. They were the 2 top-ranked teams coming into the offseason or coming into the shortened season. The Yankees are one of the deepest teams offensively, and they have enough good starting pitchers to get them through. The Dodgers just got arguably one of the best players in baseball, Mookie Betts. They have Clayton Kershaw, who, outside of the playoffs, is the best pitcher in baseball. And they're the 2 powerhouses in the league. But we have some surprising teams right now. The Cubs have jumped off to a great start in the National League along with the Rockies. And we also have the Twins and the A's off to a hot start. My real contenders, though, are still probably, I would say, the Yankees, the Twins, and I would say the Astros. Now, their Shane tour is off to going well so far. They're Altuve struggling, Bregman struggling. It's nice to see that if you're a fan of baseball, but I think they're such a deep team. They're going to, as we get closer to the end of the season, going to make a more solid run because they have a lot of depth and they have playoff experience. And when it comes to the National League, again, the Dodgers are for real, and I think the Cubs are legit. Now, Chris Bryant is having a good year, and last year was his only off year in his whole career. He got off to a good start. Was Rookie of the Year, MVP, won the World Series. Last year he was injured. Now he's back healthy again. I think he's a key part in why these Cubs are going to be a legit contender. And in the NL East, I know the Marlins have a good record right now because they had their weird stint out of baseball with Corona and all that. I don't believe in them, obviously. I think the Braves are most likely to come out of the NL East. I think they're going to be contenders. I don't think they'll make it to the NLCS, but I think they'll be a legit team with good bats, with Acuna Jr. and some good pitching too. So I'd say, yeah, Cubs, Dodgers, Braves, Yankees, Twins, and Astros are my legit contenders for this season.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff to sift through there. And as a Red Sox fan, obviously watching Mookie Betts in a Dodgers uniform hurts more and more every day. But Zay, let's move to you. I think one team that Noah might have missed on those sleeper teams maybe are the Cincinnati Reds in the Central. They're putting together a really good offense. But what do you have to say about those teams like the Cubs, even the Twins, the Astros, the A's that aren't as top tier as the Yankees and the Dodgers, but have a good chance to make it into the World Series?
Well, okay, the Cubs I can agree with because Javi Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, they have all that talent. Wilson Contreras behind the plate. I mean, you can go all around with the Cubs. and they are looking like playoff contenders. They're great offensively with the bats. The pitching's got, in my opinion, and defensively, no doubt they're especially like like I said, Javi Baez, one of the best defensive players, one of the best overall players in the league. The Reds, they're looking pretty well, honestly, with Joey Votto, Aristides, and Kino, whatever his name is pronounced, honestly. But like, because he's like one of the best power hitters, power young hitters in the league. But I don't think they're going to be like as much of a playoff contention as the Cubs. But I gotta say the Cubs are playoff contenders. The Braves, honestly, there are playoff contenders also, but they probably won't make a great run in the postseason because of, last year they had a great season, but then it just fell off. And plus, Mike Soroka has gotten hurt and is out for the season. So Mike Foltynewicz, Max Fried, Joey Sachin, they all have to step up on the pitching role. And on the American League side, oh yeah, never mind. Let's switch up. The Dodgers, they have talent all over. They no doubt looking like World Series contenders. With Mookie Betts, you can put them in the top 3 in the lineup. Then you could with reigning MVP, NL MVP Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy, Jock Peterson. That whole lineup, they have so much young talent in LA. It's insane. And going over to the American League, is looking like the Yankees hands down with Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton batting back to back, 6'7", height, about over 270 pounds, batting back to back, have crazy power on bat. I mean, that's just crazy. And then you have a starting pitcher like Garrett Cole, who can throw it 100 miles an hour consistently. I mean, there's no doubt the Yankees are looking pretty tough this year.
Yeah, definitely. And Isaac, can you talk a little bit about some weaknesses that those teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees have? If the Dodgers or the Yankees were not to win the World Series, what would be their biggest barrier? What's going to stop them from winning the pennant?
Well, with the Dodgers, pitch and play, it might be good in the regular season and everything, but once the playoffs hit, it kind of, just dips down and not really improve. I guess with the Yankees, just like injuries and everything, with, our runs in the past, it's been really hurt with a lot of injuries and everything. So that's what I feel about with the Yankees and Dodgers.
Yeah, the Yankees, it seems like every single year they stun the entire league with their next man up mentality. It always seems like Gio Urshela, all of a sudden he could bat 4, maybe 28 teams in the league. I do think pitching is another weakness for the Yankees behind Cole, obviously. They don't have a ton of depth with their starting rotation. And now, Sterling, Chris, Matt, I want to turn it to you guys. Maybe generally baseball, but even the sports landscape in general. We've seen a lot of injuries so far, a lot of pitchers going down. I think it was Zay who mentioned Mike Soroka with the Braves. He tore his Achilles, so that's that soft tissue injury. Sterling, how much do you think the uncertainty with the MLB coming back, the shortened summer camp, the shortened spring training, how much of that do you think is playing into how many players have gotten injured, and how do you think that's going to affect teams down the stretch? And even the COVID list, which is a separate thing from the IL.
I actually feel like the injuries itself is kind of just still one of those a part of the game type things where like it's going to happen whether you have a full camp or not. Somebody's going to get injured at some point in time. And even with like how they're playing games, they're playing like 7-inning back-to-back games. The teams themselves in the MLB actually liked playing these games, these 7-inning games, the way they're set up. There's not really much of a pushback to playing 7-inning back-to-backs in the same day or anything like that. So I think the injuries is more just about just kind of how the game is going. And I think going forward, of course, teams will have to find a ways to adjust quick than usual. But I don't think injuries. I think it's going to be a next man up mentality. You kind of have to have it, and everybody that's playing right now really wants it because they could have been at home or take care of their families, but they want to be here. They want to be here. They want to play. So I think it's going to affect many teams going forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you actually foreshadowed a little bit what we'll be talking about later with the decision to play or to go home. But Matt and Chris, I'll leave it with you guys. If you have any World Series favorites, what your predictions are for the upcoming months in baseball.
I kind of agree with. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
You go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, go.
So, I mean, I kind of agree with, basically what everybody was saying. It seems like the common denominators are the Yankees and the Dodgers. Now, Noah, I know you threw in the Astros, and I know me and Sterling kind of looked at each other like, did he just say the Astros? But hey, if that's your pick, that's your pick, man. I won't say too much about it.
I'm not saying I like them. I'm saying they're still a good team. As much as I hate what they did, they are good. They have good players, and I think and they have playoff experience. I don't want them to do well, but if I'm going to bet a top 3, top 4 teams in the league, yeah, they got to be in there.
That's different. I've never heard that before, but I mean, like I said, that's pretty much the common denominator. And I think I kind of speak for both Matt and I, just hearing everybody. It seems like Yankees and the Dodgers, and that's what it's going to come down to.
There's nothing more that I would love to see than Houston go back to the World Series. That would piss off the baseball community to like the T of it. I would love to see it. But yeah, I think this is really testing everybody's next man up approach. And obviously maybe like hopefully nobody gets sick or whatever, gets injured. But then like let's say you go down, somebody has to be ready to go and keep moving like nothing's happened. So if you have the next man up approach, we're gonna figure it out. And also might throw off some people's routines here because you never know who's gonna get sick, who can get injured and stuff like that. So we'll see in the coming weeks. But yo, now that you brought that to my attention, I would love nothing more to see Houston in the World Series. Oh my God, I think some people might.
Come on, man.
That's a hot take.
I never said they're making it that far. I just said up there.
I did see today, I don't remember the source, but everybody's talking, and Bregman especially, about how they're going to prove everybody wrong this year, that they weren't cheating, they can still hit. Saw something today, Bregman, Altuve, and Springer combined in these 10 to 13 games have combined to hit 184. So if that's any measure of
great
success so far.
Great for the brand, great for baseball.
West. All right, so let's switch over to the NBA now. We had a pretty extensive talk last week about the Western Conference, which has a ton more teams, a lot more competition, that drive for the 8 seed, which has seen a lot of mix-up, and Sterling got to give some credit to his Spurs pick. Spurs have gone up, Pelicans have gone way down. But let's shift today to the East. The Wizards have actually fallen into 10th place. Charlotte Hornets have gone up to 9, even though they are not in the bubble. Isaac, I want to start with you. Who is your favorite to come out of the East NBA bubble?
I just want to know how Charlotte. Wow. Okay. Well, anyways, but my favorites out the East. I'm gonna have to go with the Heat, and I'm gonna have to go with the. Oh my God! I'm gonna have to go with the Raptors as well. Seeing those past couple of games, seeing Lowry step up, seeing Fred Van Vliet stepped up, made me reassure that they're still a championship team. They're still ready whenever, to fight in the playoffs. And with the Heat, just the way that they play, their chemistry is just very great. And the way that they use small ball, I just love it. And yeah, those are my 2 picks.
Kyle Lowry, Nova grad here, by the way. Zay, explain to me why Isaac did not pick the Bucks, the reigning NBA MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Okay, so I disagree on the Heat. The Heat do have talent. Do not get me wrong, but with Giannis, who is 6'11", who has like over a 7-foot wingspan, who can go through defenses. Chris Middleton, who is a sharpshooter, who can shoot lights out. But like I can't really go into depth on Like the Heat are great. The Heat are great. They have like lots of talent, like Iguodala, Olenek, Derrick Jones Jr., Bam, whatever his last name pronounced.
Adebayo.
Adebayo, thank you. Uh,
Don't forget
yeah,
Jimmy.
and he, oh yeah,
16, 10, and
yeah,
5.
Bam. But I don't know why he didn't pick Milwaukee. But then again, I kind of understand why, because like Milwaukee's like, oh, they're not like overhyped, but like they might be to a point where they get so hyped up that they're gonna like get out of playoff contention. Well, not playoff contention, they'll get like kicked out of the playoffs. So that's pretty much my reason.
Sterling, real quick, can we get a score check for the Heat right now?
Yeah, we have sold the game, by the way. We was up by about 20
Oh, no. That's not the way I was expecting that to go. I'm sorry.
That was a 4-point game, but I will say about my Miami Heat, which is my two favorites out of the East, will be Miami and Toronto. For the sole reason that, one, we were beating the Bucks by 20 without Jimmy Butler and sixth man of the year candidate Goran Dragic by almost 20 points. So that's encouraging for me. Two, we shoot the ball from the CLA. Yes, the Colonial Life Arena. We are shooting the basketball from that parking lot because we have led the league in three-point percentage. Okay, when we talk about playing against the Bucks and even the Boston Celtics, Styles makes these fights. We are going to put up and be efficient in our three-point shooting while using the same formula that Toronto used against Milwaukee in terms of building that wall behind Giannis and putting one dog in front of him, who will be Bam Adebayo, who will dog him the whole game. So I feel like I like that matchup for us. I still don't know who the Bucks' third, fourth guys are going to be. Everybody on our team knows their role, and even Toronto, that championship team, they play excellent defense. We saw it against the Lakers. We even saw it against us. But the thing with Toronto is people's talked about Pascal Siakam this whole year, but Fred VanVleet is ascending at a very rapid rate right now. And they play such great team ball. Those are my two favorites coming out. Of course, I'm gonna pick the Heat because I'm a Heatle. But I don't see where the Bucks go in Boston. They're just not deep enough for me.
All right, the team we seem to not be talking about, no, this is going to be personal for you, but I wrote an article today on SportsCasters.com. 76ers All-Star Ben Simmons out indefinitely. Why aren't these guys talking about the Sixers, A, and B, how much is Simmons' absence going to hurt Philadelphia?
Well, for good reason. I love my Sixers, got my flag behind me, but from what I've seen, this team does not know its identity right now. I mean, Embiid's been great in these first three games. He's averaging almost 30 points, 10 boards. Simmons, before the injury, did not look good. Tobias has been putting good numbers. Outside of that, there's not a lot of chemistry, not a lot of ball movement, not a lot of scoring on this team. And now with Simmons most likely out for the rest of these final 8 games before the playoffs, they're not going to be able to get use of him at the 4 with Shake at the 1. There just seems to be a lot of team chemistry issues outside of Embiid, who's just been dominant when he plays. And it's just it doesn't seem there right now. Again, a lot of things could turn if their defense maybe steps up in a playoff series and Embiid averages 30, 35 a game. They can go toe-to-toe with any team for sure. But when you look at teams like the Raptors who play great team defense, teams like the Bucks who have the reigning MVP, the Heat's a great team, the Celtics play as a great team, great ball movement. It's that team aspect isn't there with the Sixers right now. It seems to be a one-man show. And again, this Simmons injury, when he comes, the point of this 8 games was they were going to try to get him with reps at the 4 with Shake at the 1 because he played point guard all year. Now this team doesn't have those practice reps. So either they go into the playoffs moving him back to the 1 or only with a couple games under his belt at the 4 with this team. They just kind of seem like they're all over the place, and I would not bet them to go out of the East. And that hurts to see.
Prime example of that lack of team chemistry you're talking about, that fight between Shake and Joel just a few days ago, and now Shake's going to be seeing many more minutes at the point, most likely. Matt, let's shift it over to you. Who is your favorite coming out of the East? And maybe what about the Celtics, the Pacers, even the Nets, some of these teams that we haven't talked about so far?
Well, throw away the Pacers. I don't really give them much of a shot. I really want to bet the house on Milwaukee. I want to see them do it, but Sterling is almost convincing me to go with that Heat team. I really wasn't paying too much attention to the Heat. Sterling started bringing it up, but now every time they win or something, they do something, Sterling sends it my way. But I really wanted to bet on the last year's MVP, the Greek Freak, to clean it up and get his team to the Eastern Conference Finals or potentially all the way to the finals. But we're going to see what happens. But if I had to bet on him, I feel like I'm going to bet over him over the Heat. That's just me.
Chris, I'll give you the final word here. Out of the East, who you got?
Well, first off, throw away the Nets. Do that expeditiously, as T.I. say. Throw away the Pacers too. I have the top three. I have the Bucks, I have the Celtics, and then I have the gotta go with the Raptors. I'm after watching a little bit of play and watching, hearing Sterling a little bit, the Heat is an honorable mention. I'll give them that. Don't want to, but I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. So, those are my top three, but I'll give the Heat their respect.
You guys are
For this footage.
You guys are disrespecting T.J. Warren. But anyway,
I don't want to hear T.J. Warren's name ever again.
He's playing in the bubble.
Oh, wait till he play in the end of two of these last three games. Oh, Jimmy gonna lock him up.
How you gonna be in the crowd? That's the question. How is he gonna be in the crowd?
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's shift now to, of course, it's awesome talking about the action of the game and all that. But we have to remember that the people who are playing the games are people, and they have a lot of personal stuff that they've left behind to enter these bubbles, or in the MLB's case, just go back out on the field. So, Zay, I want to start with you. If you were an athlete, you can take it either in the bubble or in the MLB, which is currently the only sport right now playing without a bubble, but the NFL at this point is also not playing in a bubble. Would you, with COVID-19 still as big of a threat as it is, would you go play, or would you stay at home and keep your family and yourself safe?
Okay, personally, I would not play. I mean, yes, I'll be eager to play. Yes, I'm excited to play. And yes, everything you want to try to get around it to be as a norm, but I wouldn't do it because my health. Because personally, let's think about it outside of a sports perspective. I want to be healthy. I want to be 100% instead of going and fighting for my life and being paranoid and whatnot in a stadium that's not going to be around, but not going to be full of people. So why would I put myself at risk of catching COVID-19 if I know players like the MLB, the Marlins, there was 14 to 18 people who caught COVID-19.
18.
And they canceled. And they've been out for 4 games and whatnot. So I'm not about to put myself in danger of catching the virus, regardless of the situation.
No, I'll ask the same question to you, and I also maybe touch on, or even Isaac afterwards. Does the lack of success that the MLB is having compared to the teams in the bubble, the NBA and the NHL, no positives, does that make the NFL need to consider playing in a bubble this upcoming fall?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of leads right into my answer. So if I was playing somewhere like the NHL, the NBA, I would play because they're doing everything right. A bubble, it's proven. It works. You keep them in, keep everyone else out. You wear your mask, you test all the time. It works. If it's something like the MLB, I mean, you got players going out for milk, according to Derek Jeter, which I don't really buy, or the Cardinals going to the casino and then spread it to other teams. It's a mess. And the NFL, I mean, I'm rooting for it, but it seems like it's going to follow a similar path because they don't have any of the same precautions. So for myself, if I was in a bubble league, I would absolutely play because I can tell they're doing everything they need to keep the players safe. These other leagues, they're doing some, but not all they could.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Isaac, same question. The other thing to consider, too, is that baseball compared to football is even less contact. So if you got to have these guys all over each other, these NFL players, can't imagine there's going to be a ton of success if you're not quarantining them in the bubble.
Right. If I was an athlete, if it's not in the bubble format, I'm not playing, especially not football because that's highly impossible to fit that into a bubble. You're thinking about 32 teams and hundreds of players in each team. It's going to be kind of hard and difficult to find that space and to find, the field and the practice time for all those teams. It's just going to be difficult. And I wouldn't want to do that because I wouldn't want to play as an athlete because I would have a family back, and I have to think about that as well. I just don't want to spread the virus and everything. And yeah, that's it.
So, Chris, Isaac made a really good point about families with kids and just having a family at home in general. I want to bring up a specific example. Mike Trout, just a few days ago, had a kid. Multiple New England Patriots, Dante Hightower, I believe Patrick Chung opted out of the 2020 season because they are either expecting or have young children at home. How much of that family aspect is factoring into this decision?
I think when you look at it, you have to look at it in two different types of athletes, and we're going to get kind of lifestyle-ish. You have the athletes that are single, you have the athletes that are married. If you're married, I would, think heavily into thinking about your family and your wife and kids, or if for the female athletes, husband, kids, I'll take that into very high consideration about not potentially playing. So I understand that. For the single athletes, let's be real. I mean, you don't have anything to go home to. And I know that sounds harsh, but at the end of the day, most likely what you're doing is playing, and that's it. You don't have a family. You don't have a wife. You don't have kids. So for those kind of players who are opting out, I understand safety. I understand you want to be safe, but at the end of the day, you have nothing else to play for. You're playing for yourself. So at the end of the day, if you're like a first year or rookie, then what are you opting out for? When you definitely need the money, because at the end of the day, a team just signed you or a team has just given you a contract. The least you can do, given the parameters, if there are parameters in place. Now, if there weren't any parameters and no type of health, safety, anything, then yes, you still have that option. But if, like, for example, if let me see if I can think of somebody. Okay, if Zion were to opt out of NBA, other than, let's take out injury, why did he opt out? Exactly. So, I mean, the NBA has done a great job of making sure there are no COVID cases, because at the end of the day, there are none, and they've recorded that twice. So for players like that, what's the issue of you opting out? So that's my take on it.
I will say there always is. Zion could easily have a mother who's high risk or a brother who's high risk. So I think it's fair to say that any player could have extenuating circumstances, but definitely from the financial standpoint, the difference between someone like Mike Trout and a rookie coming up who has just barely made the cut because it's an expanded roster this year is a different story. Sterling and Matt, I want to shift it to college athletics a little bit, just because of all these uncertainties surrounding the college football season. We've seen the Pac-12 and the Big Ten players becoming very vocal about their rights, basically, and how they feel that the NCAA has wronged them because of just the whole uncertainty and the greediness surrounding the whole situation. So, Matt, I'll start with you. How does the college landscape change the decision to opt out of the upcoming football season?
Well, I will start by saying the NCAA, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to them. It's like right now they saw the Black Lives Matter thing. They're like, okay, I think we're okay about that. And they see a lot of other things going on and say, okay about that. Then the Pac-12 players come out and like, hey, we want change from y'all too. And it's like, oh, God. Like, I can imagine that Pac-12 commissioner looking on his desk like, what is happening? And so now the Big Ten players doing the same thing with the Big Ten United. And these players now, what is interesting to me is which players are like, this is how we're moving, and which players are kind of like, okay, that's what they're talking about over there. But like, I'll play regardless. And same thing for like walk-ons. You probably got some walk-ons guys or some guys that probably were on the too deep or barely on too deep, are kind of like, go ahead and y'all go ahead and not play so we can go ahead and get our time to play, or maybe get our TV time. But as far as the COVID thing, I think one of the things the Big Ten players were asking for is it's like, yo, if we decide to opt out, we should be able to therefore still have our eligibility for next year. So I think they're hoping to get that accomplished. It'll be interesting to see if the Big Ten decides to like sign off on all the requests that the players have And also, I was kind of trying to figure out if Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and those guys were even going to participate this year because they could really just go ahead and start preparing for the draft. But I saw Justin Fields was asked he's voted a captain, and I feel like that means something to him. And so I feel like he's going to come back and play. And Trevor's the same thing. We'll tell y'all real quick. I looked at the Clemson schedule real quick. Only team they got on that schedule is Notre Dame. That's all they got. So they probably going to be back in this. But I looked at that schedule. I said, I know when Dabo saw that the ACC conference only, he said, well, we got ourselves another championship. So we're going to see what happens with that.
Maybe North Carolina.
Yeah, good point. Because Sam Howell led that team, so good point.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point about Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields too. And I think if they opt out, that creates a huge domino effect for lesser-known players too, because they're obviously the highest in the game right now. So, Sterling, I'll leave it with you. A lot of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten demands centered around health measures, but a lot of it was the economic safety and the economic benefits that they can gain. If you were a college football player, would you play this season knowing that you wouldn't even gain the economic benefits as you would as a professional player?
It depends on what type of player I am. If I'm a person that is projected to go in the first, second, third round of the NFL draft coming up, I'm opting out immediately and getting an agent and get on the phone talking to whoever I can talk to try to either to boost my draft stock and show as many teams where I am as possible instead of risking it on this one season. But if I'm a guy that they're looking at as a 5th to 6th round player and I have to perform, like let's look at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow last year, if we put the coronavirus in last year's and we have Joe Burrow coming up, Joe Burrow's not opting out because Joe Burrow wasn't going to get drafted nowhere near the first round. He was not going to get drafted number one overall. So he's going to play that season because he sees this as an opportunity he would have seen this as an opportunity to raise his draft stock the same way he ended up doing last year, ultimately becoming the number one pick in the draft. But if you're a guy like Tua, for example, Tua probably could have said, I'm not playing this year. I'm going to be a top 5 QB pick regardless. There's no point if my health was gone on that year to now risk it in a COVID year where Bama's going to have people to play behind them regardless. That's what we're going to my decision, along with the school that I'm playing for. Like, we've seen schools, like I think it was Colorado State, and I think it was an ACC school that was being a little too relaxed about their COVID measures in terms of player safety, where I believe here at South Carolina, they've said that all the players right now, at least as they've spoken, they've taken all the correct measures. They're actually taking the thing seriously. So if you play for a school like that that's going to take everything seriously, and the conference that's taking it seriously, where you can opt out and still keep your eligibility and all that stuff, then that can go greatly to your decision. Where I just feel like, Pac-12 and Big Ten, they're kind of messy right now, which is why the players have this uncertainty surrounding themselves and why they feel like they have to push this thing forward for them to get the correct safety measures they need and make sure that they're going to be fine economically.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a good point about the tier of player. We saw Penn State's Micah Parsons, who's projected to be top 10, I believe, opted out. So now he joins Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech, another top 5, top 10 pick. So I think everybody's just holding their breath about really what's going to come down to it in college football, and that could maybe set a precedent for the NFL season upcoming in the fall too. But guys, thank you, Isaac, Zay, Noah. Thank you so much for joining us today. That was really fun. Another really good episode. Sterling, Matt, Chris, thanks again for being here. Once again, SportsCasters is brought to you by Rel's Revenge and Slim Dev Media, Music. This is week 5 of the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
This podcast is brought to you by Official Slim Dev Music and Rel's Revenge. Stay tuned next week for more on SportsCasters Media. See you soon.
Tell us, Slime. Yeah, I am the king of the E. Hey, get it like the DJ. Yeah, I am the